Okay, so you've made the initial project, you've made your player with the character controller. In the last lesson with myself or Rob, you would have made your first room and actually stylized it. Now, your room's going to look a lot better than mine. This is just something we've made really, really quickly. So what the challenge is of today's lessons is to animate this door, open and closing. So the door at the minute is closed. We will animate it open, and then we close it again. And we're also going to create our pressure point puzzle. So what you're going to be introduced to today is animations and animation controllers. So to do that, what we'll first do is we'll animate this door. So if you come down to your project panel, you'll see I have two tabs, animation and animator. If you don't have that, if you just go to window, animation, animation, and then animator. To create a new animation, just select the object. So this is the door object. And I'm going to hit create. I'll come to my assets folder and I'll make a new folder called animations. And then I'm just going to call this door underscore anim. Or in fact, let's call it door idle. Or door closed actually. So animations, rename that to the door closed anim. So now this is our animator. And this is our timeline. And what the timeline allows us to do on the drop sheet is add keyframes for certain elements. So what do we need to animate? If we look at the inspector, you see a transform, position, rotation, scale. If I move this up, we are moving on the y-axis. So that is exactly what we need to animate. We need to animate the y-axis of the position and the transform. So we go to add property, transform, position, and hit the plus. So now that position is now got its initial keyframe, and then we've got some end keyframes here. So all we do here is delete these keyframes because I'm not going to need them. Next, we need to work out how fast we want this door to open. So our samples are set to 60 frames, so 60 frames a second. So what we should do is, how long is it going to take to open this door? And at 30 frames, it's half a second. So let's just move this up and hit the plus sign here, and that's our animation. Now if you watch and hit play, that's how fast that door is opening. So about half a second. However, on this particular one, we don't even want that because it's a DI door, it's closed. So this is where the door is closed. What we should do next is hit the drop down on door closed and create a new clip. And now this is door opening anim. So what we'll do now is we'll add the properties, add the transform, position, again get rid of this, and now at 30 frames you can also hit the record button here. Now this records everything we do, so I can just move this up and you'll see straight away it's added the keyframes already for us. So again, we open, we hit stop. Next step is to turn off the record, come down here and create another clip, and it's door closing anim. Because if we want the door closed, we want the door to open, and we want the door to close again. So closed, open, ing, closing. So what we need to do here is go to the door opening, come to the last frame here, and we can just copy these keyframes. Come back to our door closing, and we can just add the property, transform, position, delete, all your keyframes because we don't need them at the minute. Nope, sorry. Delete these final keyframes here. Move these along and paste the keyframes in. And move this back to 30. So now we go down. And that's as simple as opening and closing that door. So what we need to do now is, now we've done all the animation, if we go to the animate tool, this actually sets up how we're going to animate it. So when on entry, what this is basically the state. So it's a state machine. And what happens here is we do something to get the animation to play. So at the minute, when you play the game, the door is on the door closed, or door closed. So this is what's playing, and it's just playing on a loop because it's just closed. What you want to happen is you need to then transition, so make a transition from the door closed to the door opening. So what we do is we click on that, right click, make transition. So we're going to transition from the door closed to the door opening. And then we make a transition from the door opening to door closing, and a transition from door closing back to the door closed. So the door is closed, it then opens, closes again, and then goes back to close itself. Now to trigger these animations, we have variables or parameters. So we hit the plus sign and we have a float, an integer, a boolean, or a trigger. We're going to use a trigger, and we're going to call this trigger opening, or sorry, activated. Activated. I'm going to make another trigger and we'll call it deactivated. So hit the little transition here, and it has a list of conditions. So the condition is basically what is going to force this animation to play. What's going to force it to play is to say, well, if we're activated, play this transition, play this animation. To reverse that, if it's deactivated, play the door closing, and once the door has played through, so once the whole animation is played through, then transition straight to the door closed, because then that allows us to then go back to this here. Okay, so what we do is that in our code, in our script, we will be able to trigger one of these triggers. Okay, but first you need to go into your project, go into your animations, and if we highlight them all, you'll see that they've got loop times on. Turn off the loop times because you don't want the animations to loop. Okay, so next step is to create the pressure pad itself and the animation for it. So to do that, I'm just going to make a simple cube. Again, you can decorate this however you like to. I'm just going to make a cube, a very simple cube. So right click, create 3D object, cube. We'll call it pressure pad. I'm just going to drop it on the room 1 prefab and center it. And then resize it to about that. Just so that my player can actually stand on. Just going to put it under the player just to make sure the player can actually fit its whole body onto it, to maybe make it a little bit wider. With some more length too. There. And I'm going to place this here. So when the player stands on that platform, something's going to happen. So what this needs is 2 colliders. So box collider, which it already has, and then another box collider, which is obviously going to be our trigger. Just make the collider slightly bigger so our player can fit into it. Okay, so I want to make another animation on this because when the player steps in it, I just want to animate it down. To do that, we just go back to the animator, make sure the pressure pad's selected, and then click create. And we're going to call this one pressure pad. So this is at its idle point. Make another animation, and we'll call it pressure pad down. And then the same principle here, add property, transform, position. Get rid of these keyframes. Make this slightly faster, and then at 15 frames, sorry, at 15 frames, we will move this down, so like so. So again, all that's happening is that's moving down. Really simple. Then we just do another one, pressure pad up. Same again, transform position. Go to it down, copy these keyframes. Just remove these to 15. There we go. And once again, come in here, make sure all the pressure pads have no loop time on. Go to your animator, make sure pressure pads on, go to the animator, just drag these around, so transition to there, make the transition from there to there. From there to there. Trigger, we'll call this activated, and then another one called deactivated. Back on here, same again. Just got rid of one activated, and on this one, deactivated. And that loops back around. Okay, good. So, next step. Come to our scripts folder, and we need to make ourselves our script for the actual pressure pad. So let's start doing that. So to do that, we just go create C# pressure pad. It's going to store and update functions, we don't need them. And let's declare some variables. So, serialized field. Again, in the lesson, you're going to be doing this. But for now, as it's post lesson, I'm just going to walk you through it. Private game object. So we make a new game object and we'll call it door. A reference. So the door we wish to animate. And then private door script. Private void on. So sorry. So we're actually going to make a door script in a moment. So we're making an on trigger enter. Do a debug.log just so you know you've entered the trigger. So entered trigger. And then we're going to make an animator. So we're going to get reference to an animator. So animator is equal to get component animator. So basically you get the animator from the game object, so from the pressure pad, this one. And then animator dot set trigger, and it's activated. So calls the activated trigger. If door dot game object dot get component door debug.log and then we're doing our script, so else so I'll tell you 2 seconds what we're doing here. Now you'll see the door.game object is trying to look for the door. It won't be able to at the minute because it's not there, because we haven't made that script yet, so that's why we're getting this error. So don't worry too much about that, we'll fix that in a second. So otherwise log out. So what we're doing here is we're just doing a null check again. So we're making sure that if the game object is attached to the door, we can do something. Otherwise we can't do something. So we get this log error. And then underscore door dot game object dot get component door dot open door. Again, we don't have the door script at the minute, so we can't do that, but we will be able to do that once we have the script. So let's just comment it out for now, just so it doesn't give us any errors, because this relies on you having 2 scripts. Also, this needs to be wrapped around its own if statement. So if ever pair tag player and let's just grab this and put this in its statement here. There. So because we need to fix this, let's actually make the door script first. So we kind of jumped a little bit to your head there, but don't worry. So the door is our door script. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this to our door itself. So I'll just drop on the door here, like so. And it's going to be a compiler error if I should have door script attached. Yes, we do. Okay, so let's open door script and let's get making that script work. So this is a very simple one. All this is going to do is handle all the opening and closing of the door. So to do that, we just make a private variable called animator, and we call it anim. Another private variable which is an audio source, void start is equal to get component audio source, and anim is equal to get component animator. So what we're doing here is we're making a reference, or sorry, getting the audio source and animator attached to the object and storing in variables. So what the audio source is it's it's a component that's attached to an object where you can then give it a clip, an audio clip to play. So it basically allows it to play audio. Now, part of your assignment is to include audio in your game, so that's where audio sources come in. It's not something we have covered in the previous projects. It's something we're now moving on to this one. The same for anim, which is the animator. So on the door, all you do is add component audio source. Added the audio source to the door. And then make sure we turn off playing awake. What playing awake does is when the game starts, that audio will play. We don't want that. So coming back to the script, we basically got the audio source and animator references, and we stored them in the variables. We do that on the start. We're going to make a public function, a public function method, and it's going to be called void open door. So the public method is void open door, and in the open door method, all we're going to do is set our triggers. So set trigger activated. So calls the animation to open the door, and then audio source dot play. So plays the audio for the door opening. We then have another function or method called void close door. And it's the same thing again, but this time we're going to set the trigger to close the door. So deactivated. And then audio source dot play. And then that's all the script is doing. It's just handling the animations and the audio for that door. So to do that, we just need the audio clip. So I'm going to import an audio clip. 2 seconds. You guys will import it yourself for your project. Be specific for yours. Yeah, so I've got the door open. So I'll hit play. So let's now attach that to the audio source. So what we do is just drag it to the audio clip, and that then becomes an audio clip. So coming back to our scripts again, and now we can continue with the pressure pads. Okay, so we can uncomment this, and it's not working for some reason, so let me just rewrite that again. So door dot game object dot get component of the type door dot open door. So that works. So what we're doing here is we're getting the door script that is attached to the door and calling the open door method. And then that's going to, obviously, when you call the open door method, you're calling this. So you're going to play the animation. So you're going to activate the trigger to start plays the animation, then you're going to play the audio source. Next step is to obviously close the door, and it's a very simple step. To close that door, what we'll do is we will say void on trigger exit. I'll show up in there, so let's do it again. So void on trigger Okay, it's being funny. Why play funny? Private. Wait, there you go. So if ever compare targeted player, animator is equal to get component animator dot set trigger deactivated. Then if again we're just going to run that check. So if door thought game object thought get component door So what's happening here is we're going to do a check that once the player gets off the trigger, and if that ever is player, get the animator, set the trigger, and then do another check to make sure something can happen, and then close the door. So these are some very simple bits of scripts that we can run. Let's go back to here and watch this in action. So let's make sure that the pressure script is on here. And then the door, we just drag this door over to here. I hit play. So all object set to an object. Where's that coming from? For some reason it's using Unity graphs. Where's this? Just get rid of that. And make sure. For some reason Unity's decided to put some extra code in for really weird reason. Not sure why. Where's this coming from? Okay, why is it doing this? Janaku's doing it. So as you see, now we're once we're through. So let's try this again. I'll play now, can't walk through the door. It's also a bug that the trigger is a bit too big, so we just want to tone the trigger down a little bit. So there. And now the trigger's not big enough, so Again, it's a case of just really refining this. Just walk over. We are in the trigger. That is where it works for us. So let's just move this up slightly. So about there then. Let's try that. So part of this puzzle requires you to have to actually sprint through the door, which is this is done on purpose. So if I sprint, you'll be able to get through. Round through. And obviously we haven't built out the rest of the level yet, so hence why it's blocked in and it's stuck. But that kind of concludes what we're doing. Now this error, don't worry about this error, you shouldn't get that. I think it's just an error with my build at the minute. I can repair that at any time, that's not a problem. I need to make sure that's not too loud. So next task, or the next lesson will be then to move on to the next room. Obviously you guys are going to have to tidy up this room yourselves, make sure it looks nice, and we can go from there. Thank you.